Okay, a very warm welcome to everybody that's made out this afternoon, and for those watching online, welcome to you as well. In previous chats, we have looked at bad arguments against Christianity, and we're going to continue that theme today. The argument is made that there are so many religions in the world, and I, as a Christian, or you as a Christian if you are one, reject all the others but accept Christianity. Whereas the atheist just rejects one more. Therefore, Christians and atheists are basically the same. There are two very major flaws with this argument. One, that we are basically the same because we both reject lots of religions. Simply not true. Secondly, that my rejection of the other religions is in some way an arbitrary decision, not based on logic or evidence. You know, I used to mock the idea of philosophy when I was younger. Why would anyone study something that doesn't have a practical application, like how to fix your car or build a straight, sturdy wall? That was because I didn't really understand what philosophy was. Philosophy is the study of how to think, how we can reason things out. We can split good thinking into three basic sections. First, there is what's called the premise. That is the idea that we're building our conclusions on. Second, there is the logic we apply to these premises. Third, there is the conclusion. If the first two are good, then the third is true. If we can find fault in the premises or the logic, then our conclusion is unlikely to be true. I'll give you an example of this. Premise 1 is that all boys like chocolate. Premise 2 is that Bobby is a boy. The conclusion, Bobby likes chocolate. Okay? If premise 1 and 2 are true, then the logic is good, then the conclusion that Bobby likes chocolate is true. However, the problem is that not all boys do like chocolate. So perhaps Bobby doesn't like chocolate. The logic was good, but the premises were wrong. So we can say that the conclusion could be wrong. So we could try again. We could say that not all girls like chocolate. Jodie doesn't like chocolate, but does like apple pie. Susie and Jodie are girls, therefore Susie likes apple pies. The premises are true, because not all girls do like chocolate. And one girl who doesn't like chocolate does like apple pie. However, the logic is bad. Because just because one girl who doesn't like chocolate does like apple pie, that doesn't mean that every girl who doesn't like chocolate does like apple pie. So the conclusion does not follow because the logic is bad. So how does this apply to our bad argument against Christianity? Well, the premise for the first problem is that we both reject the major religions. That is true. The conclusion that makes us the same actually includes an unspoken premise, though. That is that because we are similar in the rejection of many religions, that we are the same. It is the second unspoken premise that is not true, and therefore the conclusion that we can draw is not true. Perhaps some analogies would help. I have a younger brother. He's actually spoken here in the hall before. We could, if we wanted to, compare the things that my brother and I have in common. We both have dark hair. We both have the same parents. We both grew up in the same house. We both played rugby in high school. We both like eating too much. We both like dogs. We can both drive tractors. But I'm married, and thus far, my brother is not. My brother has not married any women. I have only married one woman, Kerry. Does the fact that I did not marry all the other women in the world make me and my brother the same? No, of course not. The important detail in determining whether I am like my brother in my marital status is not the number of women I rejected, but rather the one woman I chose to marry. When it comes to our marital status, the important thing is not how similar my brother and I are, but how we are different. So it is with my worldview. It is not the number of other worldviews or religions that I have rejected that matters, but rather the one I have selected. There is no good philosopher that would present this argument against Christianity, because it simply doesn't make sense. My hair colour, my upbringing, my diet, my sporting history does not impact my position as a married man. So it is in matters of my position before God. It doesn't matter how often I warm a pew at a church. It doesn't matter if I was christened as a child. It is inconsequential if my name is on a list of a church register, or if I have lived a moral life. My charitable giving, my prayer life, the number of times I have read my Bible or said Hail Mary or recited the sinner's prayer. The thing that matters, the only thing that matters, is that when it comes to my position before God, is that I have repented and believed. Without that, it doesn't matter how much I look or sound like a Christian. I would not be a Christian. I might behave like a married man, but if I've not gotten married, I'm not a married man. It's an absolute state. You either are married or you're not. Even when I was engaged, I was still not married. In the same way, we are either Christian or we're not. We can't be kind of Christian. We can't be culturally Christian. And we're definitely not born Christian. All but one of my siblings are married. That doesn't make my brother any closer to being married, or me any less married. The second point that I have a problem with is that my selection of Christianity and my rejection of other worldviews is an arbitrary decision and not one based on evidence or logic. In this situation, it is simply the premise that is untrue. While I may not be the oldest person on this planet, that does not mean I have no experience of views different from my own. In fact, I've had to defend my worldview for most of my life. All my friends growing up disagreed with me. And if I were not convinced that my worldview were coherent and evidence-based, I would have no reason to maintain it. But Christianity is evidence-based. I would have had no reason to keep a hold of it if I was not convinced based on the evidence. It is the only worldview that does not have a fatal flaw to those who have the evidence available. Atheism, it has two great flaws. The main premise of atheism is that the material world is all that there is, and that the laws of nature cannot be broken. However, the universe around us evidences that that is not the case. Science has shown that the universe had a beginning. Everything that exists and had a beginning has a cause. So something had to cause the universe. The universe is made up of time, space, and matter. Therefore, whatever made the universe must be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. Secondly, science has shown that life cannot be made from non-life. Yet we have life all around us. This is impossible in a materialistic worldview. So materialism rejects miracles, but it requires two, at the very least. That everything comes from nothing, which is logically incoherent, and that life can come from non-life, which is known as abiogenesis. Secondly, there is the multiple God worldview. That is the worldview of the Greeks, the Romans, the Norse, the pagans, Hinduism. They all have this same problem. That is that their gods are not eternal. So they cannot be the reason for the beginning of the universe. They are simply part of the universe, if they exist at all. Islam has what we call the Islamic dilemma, and Judaism can't explain the death, burial, and resurrection of the historical Jesus, or the fulfillment of prophecy by Jesus. The reason that I advocate for Christianity month by month is not because I have accepted it on blind faith. It is not because I have ignored the difficult questions that are raised by the Bible, but because I have tested it and found it to be true. You may look at the evidence and not be convinced, but you cannot claim that there is no evidence. You cannot claim that it is based on blind faith. So I urge you to look at your own worldview, see the objections made against it, compare it with the evidence for the Bible and its claims, and you too, like me, may, and many others like me, may see that Jesus was real. He really died to take the punishment for the wrongs that you have done, and he really rose again to give us a certain hope of a bright future with him. Thank you very much for watching. We will have John Mitchell, who's one of our own Christians here, to preach to us next week. Thank you very much.